Before I start this review, I just want to let you all know that I made my own movie. It's called Creature, and it's a small little film I made on my budget in my house with a bunch of friends, and it's like not this big production thing, but it is something that I did work really hard on, and everybody involved worked hard on, so I'd appreciate if you guys can maybe check it out now, or after the video, or at some point. Link will be on the screen right now, and it'll be at the end of the video, and it'll also be in the description. But yeah, let's get into it. So I just saw Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the brand new film from James Wan, which stars Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Patrick Wilson as Orm, I think his name is, or Ocean Master, or whatever. The film is a sequel to 2018's Aquaman, and it is also the final film in the Zack Snyder DCEU universe. It's the universe that started all the way back in 2013 with Man of Steel, and it's been an up and down last decade for DC. I mean, there's been a lot of highs and a lot of lows. This movie, it's somewhere in the middle. I would have loved for this universe to go out with a bang, and I would not say that it did that, but it did kind of go out with a whimper. So Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom follows Aquaman, who is now the king of Atlantis after the final, after the last movie. And he has this new threat. We have Black Manta coming back, who's an awesome villain from the first movie, and he's kind of awesome in this movie. And he's got this weird trident thing, which gives him more powers, and he's out for revenge, and there's a secret villain in the background, and now we have a movie. Now, there's a lot that I actually really liked about this movie. First off, Jason Momoa has so much fun in this role, and you could see that he's having fun with this character. Despite the fact that the script is not the best thing ever, he is doing his absolute best to bring as much energy to every single thing that he does in this movie. He is awesome, and he deserves the credit that he should be getting. Patrick Wilson is also fine, although I do feel like he was kind of just, throwing in just an okay performance in the movie, just kind of taking a paycheck at times, but there are some scenes where he does some really good work here, and I think his relationship and his chemistry with Jason Momoa, although not exactly written very well, and definitely a step back from something like the relationship between Thor and Loki, it's still, at times, charming enough to work. A lot of the other characters are just kind of thrown away, like Willem Dafoe's character's not in the movie, and they just kind of killed them off screen. Nicole Kidman's back, she doesn't do anything. Amber Heard, for some reason, is back, and you could tell that they definitely cut out a lot of what they had originally filmed with her. She definitely had a much bigger role in the original script, and in this film, she's just completely cut out of a lot of it. I will say the actual central pacing of the story and the central plot line is not terrible. I mean, it's definitely over-convoluted and doesn't really make sense, but that's really at the fault of the studio coming into the edit room like Edward Scissorhands and cutting this movie to absolute fucking bits and pieces. There had to be multiple cuts of this movie, multiple reshoots, because this movie went through multiple different regime changes at DC. At one point, this movie was going to be a setup to the new Michael Keaton universe that they were setting up. Then it was going to be setting up the Black Adam, versus Henry Cavill universe. And now it's the end, so it can't be setting up anything. It's just got to be its final movie, so James Gunn could do his own thing. So because of all these regime changes, they've had, there's probably multiple different versions of this movie for multiple different futures of DC. And because of that, the version that we ended up getting is probably the most watered down, aspect of that, or version of that. Therefore, the plot doesn't exactly make a lot of sense, but I'm not really going to blame James Wan or anybody involved. I'm going to blame the studio for that, because that's what happens when the studio gets too involved in the movie. You get so many different cuts, and it ends up watering down the plot and making it like jambalaya. But there are a lot of interesting ideas here. I'm not even going to lie. I know a lot of people are hating on it, but there are some ideas that I thought were really cool. I think Black Manta's a really cool character, and I think his revenge quest is really great. And this idea that he'd be willing to sink the rest of the world to topple Aquaman is some, super villain shit. Like, I was cool with that. The villain behind Black Manta, I'm assuming, is one of the things that ended up dying in the reshoots, because he is not good whatsoever, and there's no way they wrote that in the script originally and thought, yeah, this is some good shit. Yeah, the actual villain is really stupid. And the overall plot line of, like, Aquaman's character arc, I mean, it's simple enough. He's a guy who's king, he doesn't really want to be king, so he goes to his brother who used to be king, and, now he's learning what it actually takes to be a leader. That's an okay plot line. It works if you do it well enough, but it's not fleshed out nearly well enough, and it's a little too goofy for it to actually fully work. I will say I enjoyed a lot of the action in this movie. Of course, it's a bunch of CGI nonsense like every comic book movie these days, but there are some really cool fight scenes, specifically in the third act of the movie, that I thought were really, really well done. But James Wan does action well. In the action movies he has made, he is a very, very good action director. I also want to compliment the score. The score in this movie is absurdly good. It's significantly better than I thought it was going to be, and I don't think people are going to give it enough credit. It's one of the better scores of the year. It's really, really good. But I want to get into some of my major problems with the movie, and my major problems are simply the fact that it feels like another cookie-cutter generic comic book movie. There's really nothing in this movie that is so memorable that it stands out amongst the rest of the other thousands of comic book movies. This is a movie that I think would have reviewed extraordinarily well if it came out 4 years years ago, but now it's coming out in a time where comic book movies are kind of on the fall. They're kind of dying a little bit. And this is a movie that just doesn't do anything original or exciting, and maybe that's not at the fault of James Wan or anybody involved, and it's just at the fault of the studio, but at the same time, it's just such a generic movie that doesn't really get to stand on its own 2 feet and do anything that really could be memorable in the long run of comic book films. It's just another gigantic CGI fest that, unlike some movies this year like The Flash and Ant-Man, it doesn't do anything that's like egregiously bad. There's no part of this movie where I was like disgusted to be watching the film as a comic book fan and as a movie person. There's nothing egregiously wrong. It's just a generic movie, a generic quest fest, a generic, superhero story with a big CGI battle and no, regular character arcs that aren't that exciting or emotional or anything. It's just very generic. Doesn't do anything crazy, doesn't do anything terrible. It's just okay. And a couple years ago, okay would have been fine. They would have made a lot of money off okay. They would have gotten great reviews off okay. But now people are kind of sick of just these, regular middle-of-the-road comic book films. Is it one of the worst comic book movies of the year? No. Is it one of the worst movies of the year? Not really. It's just kind of a regular film that I'm not going to be thinking about past, like, this week. Overall, I will give Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's fine. I think if you still enjoy comic book movies, you're going to find some enjoyment in this one. I think if you don't enjoy the modern comic book film, you're probably going to fucking hate this one. So that's the video. Please make sure to like it. Make sure to click the video on your screen right now to watch my film, and I'll see you guys in the next video.